Star Wars surprise. You were the first person who told me that there was a brand new trailer for Tales of the Empire. And I want to know what was going through your head, Tim.
I was
first saw
Tales of the Empire trailer. We just stopped our This Comic Cooks, which you should subscribe to This Comic Cooks on YouTube and all other podcatchers. And we just wrapped, and I was actually just on my way to a class that I teach at Weber State campus. And I'm just and as I do, I'm scrolling on my Instagram and I see this poster, Tales of the Empire. I'm like, what is this? And I watched the trailer and I am just, I'm filled with this enthusiasm. And I loved Tales of the Jedi, don't get me wrong. It was great. Seeing the fall of Dooku, seeing baby Ahsoka's mother was great. But this pushed me over the edge. I was so excited because I've always, we talked about earlier that the Empire is ruthless and cruel and they're evil and they're awful. But you know what? I love them. I even declared my allegiance to the Empire on 2 occasions at Disney parks. So I'm all about the Empire, and I loved this trailer. I love that what we're getting. We're getting a story that we'll talk more about that we haven't been waiting a decade for. 11 years for. And I don't know if I was interested in seeing also, we'll talk more about the rise of Morgan Elsbeth. I don't think that was a character that, she was fine in Ahsoka and The Mandalorian, but this is interesting. Because, Filoni, you dirty dog, you got me again.
It seems he had this in his back pocket because it felt like, I think when it's all said and done, when this whole Filoni-verse has its story told, I think a lot of these characters that in Ahsoka at the time we didn't know, like Baylan Skoll and Merrin, is it Merrick? Merrick. And a lot of these characters, which we see in this, we saw in this Tales of the Empire trailer, we're going to get a backstory on them that is more satisfying, because if we just take Ahsoka season 1 and don't count anything else, even if you don't count Rebels, if you just watched Ahsoka, there's a lot of confusing things. You'd be like, what? Who is Ezra? What is going on? Why is Thrawn important? All these things. And I think at the end, when we see the bigger picture, when we zoom out, it's going to be a more satisfying experience. But I got to say, Tim, you are very similar to my wife, who has a Darth Vader tattoo on her back and has always, since the day I met her, been a Dark Side Empire fan. So this is right. I think she's really going to love this. You know what I love? Actually, before I talk about what I love, which there's an upward and a downward thing that we have going on in both Tales of the Jedi and now Tales of the Empire. I want to ask you real quick, when you saw the Tales of the Empire logo, you saw that poster, so I saw a lot of people online saying they thought it was going to be Tales of the Jedi season 2. And I was always under the impression that it was going to be Tales of the Sith. I thought either way, it was going to be something dark side. It was going to be something on the opposite end. I didn't think we were going to get another Tales of the Jedi. Were you thinking there was going to be another Tales of the Jedi season, or how are you?
I thought there might have been maybe in telling of different eras of the Jedi, different characters in that time of the, Clone Wars and all of that other stuff. I was kind of expecting that. When talking about Ventress from earlier this season of the Bad Batch, I think that was a definite possibility. But on the other hand, I do like this because not only do we get Tales of the Jedi, we get Tales of the Empire. And after this is over, after this trailer was over, I was just like, well, what's next? What other things are we going to have? Tales of the Sith, Tales of the Republic. This is a great avenue to explore the Old Republic, Tales of the Old Republic, Tales of the Masters. And the options are endless because
if they could get
you could tell like certain stories in certain times in the Star Wars galaxy, and it fleshes out the Star Wars galaxy and flourishes it and makes it more rich as opposed to making it more small, which,
Right.
when you're dealing with a vast galaxy like this and a universe like this, because it's a universe now because we have two galaxies in Star Wars now. And so, yeah, the possibilities of that got me really excited.
Man, you just got me excited thinking about Tales of the Old Republic. Like, ever since Knights of the Old Republic, the video game came out, and I've said it before, that is my favorite story. Like, if you just take TV show, comic book, novel, my favorite story in all of Star Wars is Knights of the Old Republic, the first video game. And I want more in that time period. That's why the High Republic excites me. That's why the James Mangold movie that we're coming out it has me excited. All of those things in the Old Republic are really exciting to me.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because, like, of these eras, because at Celebration recently they came out with a timeline of eras, and it starts with Dawn of the Jedi, and they didn't nix the Old Republic because it's there on the timeline. Old Republic, High Republic, and then we get to Fall of the Jedi. I'm looking at Fall of the Jedi, Reign of the Empire, Age of Rebellion, New Republic, Rise of the First Order, and the New Jedi Order with the Ring. So yeah, I think there are plans. I think they're just trying to firm them up and figure out what they want to do with the old. Because I don't think they're sure.
Yes. Yeah. So I want to see what comes out of that. So for this Tales of the Empire, like I was alluding to, it's very interesting to me that with Tales of the Jedi, we got the downfall of Dooku. He is going down as we have the rise of Ahsoka. This one, it looks like it's going to be, like you were saying, the rise of Morgan Elsbeth to where she got in Ahsoka. That was her end point. And then the fall of the character that Tim has been waiting a decade to find out what happened to, Barriss Offee.
We have not seen Barriss Offee since season 5 of the Clone Wars when she tried to frame Ahsoka and bomb was someplace in the Jedi Order. I'm blanking on where, but she was.
Was it the temple?
Yeah, it was the temple. That's right. It was the temple.
Okay.
It was season 5. It's what led to Ahsoka leaving the Jedi Order. And so then there's always been kind of, because she saw that the Jedi were falling and were losing sight of what was important. And how she went about it. She was right, of course, but how she went about it was wrong. And now we're seeing kind of a downward spiral for her as, she was eventually kidnapped by the Republic, which then turned into the Empire. And now she's being trained to be an Inquisitor. Jason Isaacs back as the Grand Inquisitor. I was a little unsure from the trailer if this was Jason Isaacs returning for the voice or if it was Rupert Everett from Obi-Wan, because it was kind of hard to tell. But then I looked at StarWars.com and they say that Jason Isaacs is indeed coming back, which is great because I loved him in season 1 of Rebels. He was fantastic.
Yes, perfect. I echo that sentiment, and seeing his face, and I was like, oh man. But this trailer is so dense. Like literally every second, there's something happening, and there's something interesting. I've been watching a bunch of breakdowns of like moment by moment, and it's like, dude, there's so many things you can pull out of all of these moments, and there's some speculation, and then there's some stuff that I think we can confirm is happening, but it's all exciting. None of this was, oh man, that's boring. Let's skip to the next part. It's like,
oh, we're doing this again. Oh, come on, guys. No, this everything was just, and like you're watching this trailer for the first time, it's just throwing all these things at you. Like the first thing that grabbed me was like that we got Thrawn back, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Thrawn, even though we just barely saw him in a set.
Right.
In live action, no less. But he's Admiral Thrawn here, and not quite Grand Admiral, as was depicted in the Thrawn novels and comics that have come out.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, seeing him back and we're going to see more of that connection between him and Morgan Elsbeth, like why she was so devoted to him specifically, and was so like, pardon my language, hell bent on getting Thrawn back from where it was at the end of Rebels. So that's
yeah. And like I said, it's just there's so much stuff. I think Ahsoka is going to benefit the most from a lot of these explanations that we're getting, more than any other TV show or novel or things like that. There's so much stuff that was not unpacked in Ahsoka, and who knows what. Have they confirmed season 2 of Ahsoka?
They have. Yeah.
Okay. Who knows what is going to be confirmed in that season? But yeah, a lot of the stuff here is going to pay off, specifically, like you said, with Morgan Elsbeth, where we saw her with that Beskar staff, and the same place where we very first saw her in live action in The Mandalorian, when she met up with Ahsoka, and they had that in that garden fight scene that they had, which love that like Japanese aesthetic to that whole the look and everything that we saw there. But I'm so curious to see the Night Sisters, Dathomir, Grievous coming in, and why, like you said, she is so beholden to Thrawn and feels like she owes him so much, to the point where, if you haven't seen Ahsoka, spoiler, she gives her life for Thrawn. Like it's just very interesting to me that level of loyalty, almost like those in World War II, like those kamikaze pilots from Japan, where it's like they are willing to sacrifice their life for this cause, where they'll just dive bomb their plane in order to try to hurt the enemy, even though it's not like going to win the war. It's just like a little victory. You're still not, and we saw that it did not win the war for them. But man, it's just very interesting to me, the level of sacrifice that certain characters and people are willing to go to give their life for.
Yeah, not only that, but
I think,
like, not only that, but we see that Elsbeth, she saw Dathomir burned and destroyed, and saw the Night Sisters killed by Grievous and the Republic, and then devotes herself to the Empire, not knowing that it's the same organization that that killed her people, and is now inflicting that same kind onto others. And it's nice to see that kind of twist about what pain is going to do for a person and what ennobles them to do certain things, because we're going to see that, on another side with Parasafi is, all the pain that she's gone through, being arrested and also working for the Empire, the same people who, she opposed, because she opposed the Republic's war effort and what to turn the Jedi into. And now she's becoming an Inquisitor. I've seen a theory that maybe Parasafi is the seventh sister from Rebels.
I saw that too.
Yeah, and there wasn't any confirmation within Rebels, but again, they hadn't told that story yet. Just like by the time Rebels was around, Siege of Mandalore was only a passing reference. But since then, we have gotten that story told, and we can now add it. And I think they could do something with it. So we'll just have to see what happens. I mean, man, how are they going to pack all of these things into these 6? Like, where were they? How long were these shorts anyway? When there was Tales of the Jedi, was it like?
Yeah, I want to say they were. Yeah, I think that's right. I'm looking it up as we speak. But that sounds right.
Yeah, it just seems like a lot of time for a lot of content, and I'm just wondering how they're going to do it. But if anyone can do it, Dave Filoni can pull it off, because he knows how much time needs to be devoted to a story. I mean, I remember when the first 2 episodes of The Mandalorian came out, and the first episode was 45 minutes, and the second episode was 30 minutes, and I was like, that's weird. Why would you do varied episode times? But then watching those episodes, I'm like, yeah, that like with those episodes were about as long as they needed to be. And I think that's the benefit of streaming, is you're not dictated by, okay, we can only tell a story in 20 minutes. Does it have to have commercials and this and that and that? And the same thing with, hour-long television. We don't have to, only tell a story within 42 minutes. We can tell a story within an hour, a half, 20 minutes, 5 minutes. It's one of the many benefits of streaming.
Yeah. I'm looking, it's about 15. The shortest episode is 13 minutes. The longest episode is 19 minutes for Tales of the Jedi. So about 15 for each one.
About a standard Clone Wars size episode or Rebel size episode. So, but they're going to pack a lot into these, and I'm really excited. Because like I said, I don't like Morgan Elsbeth, and I definitely am going to want to watch these episodes of Mandalorian and Ahsoka and Clone Wars for Barriss Offee again to, be all ready. Because I don't remember a lot of these things, because for Barriss Offee, I haven't seen her since season 5 of the Clone Wars, and that was that was before Disney owned Lucasfilm.
Dang, I had forgotten that it leaves off on a cliffhanger. Like you never see what happens to her. I just, in my mind over the years, I'm like, oh yeah, that got settled, moved on from that. But man, now we're finally getting to see what happened to her. And like you said, it's that ironic tragedy of Anakin in her, the same way that it feels like she was doing it for the right reasons, but she was doing it the wrong thing for the right reasons. Same thing with Anakin.
That's all villains.
I think that's what that, and we talk about X-Men. You and I are reviewing X-Men 97 over on the other comic book channel, This Comic Cooks, and just the soap opera and the drama of the X-Men week to week. It's right here the same. Like, I love that type of just juicy drama, and it's the only way that I put it.
And we talked about Invincible, yes, because you're
Invincible same way.
You finished that. I'm starting it, and it's just with Nolan, aka Omni-Man, he's like doing these terrible things, but he feels like he's doing it for the right reason. I just spoilers for Invincible if you haven't seen it, but he's on another planet because he left because he knew he couldn't carry out his mission. And so he thought he was doing the right thing. He was just doing the wrong thing for the right reasons. And yeah, everyone's a hero in their own story. And we definitely see that with Anakin. We've seen that with Palpatine to an extent, although he embraces his villainy more than others.
Yeah.
But, these layered characters, they think they're doing things for the right reason. Even Baylan Skoll in Ahsoka, left the Jedi Order because for the same reasons that Barriss Offee left. Didn't want anything part of it. He thought that, the Jedi were being like used for the war, which they were. She was right. And she was onto something. But she just went about it the wrong way. And
and I loved the ending of this trailer. You see Tales of the Jedi burned away and morphing into Tales of the Empire. That was when we got the actual name revealed to us of this is not going to be Tales of the Jedi. That was the same thing that they did with Bad Batch. If you remember, the very first trailer, it was that Clone Wars logo, and it burned off and melted into the Bad Batch. So I love that transition that they did on both of these. But you mentioned that Anakin, that irredeemable or redeemable guy that we've known and loved that turned into Darth Vader. We see Vader at the end of this trailer and hearing his breathing, and we are going to get some good, I think, Vader content. Who is going to be voicing Vader is always curious to me, because if you remember, Disney bought James Earl Jones's voice. I don't know if you remember that a couple of years ago. The rights or the likeness to his AI voice. So I wonder, is this going to be the first project that we get his voice in? That's going to be very interesting to see, because I told you this off mic. To me, if you're not going to get James Earl Jones, which at this point he's retired, he's not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
The only Vader voice that is acceptable to me is Chad Vader. I don't know the guy's name that does Chad Vader, but for a long time, he was doing commercials. he was doing video games. He did the Force Unleashed video game and all type of dolls and merchandise that they had. And it was like, oh, okay, they're going to use him until he dies, right? Like he's going to be the Vader. And then something happened and they started going away from him and not using him. Every now and then I'll hear his voice. I'll be like, oh, it's Chad Vader. But it's always sad when I don't get to hear him. So we'll see when this Tales of the Empire comes out. Tim, it is less than a month away. May the 4th. We are at Tales of the Empire.
Hey, here's the thing about that is like the Bad Batch ends on May 1st. So like 3 days later, after the Bad Batch ends, we get this. I'm like, and I guess like because the Bad Batch was going to end on May 1st, I'm like, well, I guess they're not doing anything for May 4th. And then they drop this. I'm like, all right, I'm cool.
Yes.
Because they always do something, always some cool thing for May 4th. They've done the Clone Wars on May 4th. They premiered the Bad Batch on May 4th. They've always done something special on Disney Plus on May 4th to commemorate that. They had a really cool documentary on Boba Fett on May 4th. Always done something special on May 4th. So I'm really happy they're doing something on May 4th and that we're going to get some Star Wars content just shortly after the Bad Batch closes shop on their spectacular run this season and spectacular.
Yes. And if you want to hear us talking about the Bad Batch, all you have to do is click right up here. I'm going to have the playlist for the Bad Batch episodes that we've been reviewing. This week, we just talked about episodes 10 and 11. There's only 4 more left, but you can check out all of our reviews that we've done so far here on Trust in the Force.
Trust only in the Force.